The first Harley-Davidson Sportster graced the earth in 1957. Well, that's at least when the Harley Model Naming Committee started earning their keep. Before then, the Sportster was simply known as the Model K. And every Sportster from then on has had a motor derived from the frail care Model K. Until now.
Right now, I am the most rock and roll human being alive. This is a Harley-Davidson. This is the Harley-Davidson you dream about. This is the Harley-Davidson Hollywood have promised us.
What it is the new Sportster, the Sportster S. A 290,000 Rand complete redesign of a 65-year-old name.
It's a little bit like Marvel superheroes. When they were originally drawn in the 60s, they had kind of simple costumes and that worked fine for the time. But nowadays, with the modern movies, you need a little bit of CGI in their costumes to give them that sort of modern new age edge.
And look at the CGI on this thing. The front has a wider tyre and a minimalistic mudguard to give it the best elements of a bobber look. Together with that raised flat track style exhaust and a crouch "I'm going to kill you" poise. This is no aging accounted motorcycle. It's Mad Max versus Terminator.
And it's not just the outwards appearance, no. This is a modern day Harley-Davidson.
That motor is the new Revolution Max that we first saw in the Pan America. A far cry from the old pushrod air-cooled chug-alongs derived from the Model K, this one has 1252 cc's of liquid-cooled fury, prodded further by variable valve timing. Unlike the Pan America, this motor is called the 1250T, the T standing for torque, meaning the max figures come in shy of that of the Pan Americas, with 121 horsepower and 127 Nm of torque. But they made up for the softened top end by throwing some meat into the mid-range.
Here we go. Oh, that's a lot of everything. It's a lot of just explosion, just hits you. Speed is all about sensors. It's all about how you feel, perspective. And I'm pretty sure there are superbikes out there that would absolutely thrash this thing. But that doesn't matter because the way I feel when I open up this throttle, it feels as though I'm going from 0 to a million in an instant. And that's the important part. Not just that, it's so smooth, it's so kind of modern. It's modern. Modern brilliant. And exciting at the same time.
Part of the reason Harley upgraded this motor is because the previous pensioner couldn't cut it in a modern world of Euro 5 standards. This one does. However, it also means that the exhaust no longer produces the famous potato sound. In fact, it hardly produces any sound at all. That's because of a law passed by leaders who were voted in by a civil majority, who obviously don't like noise.
And what that means is that upon average, human beings are very boring. Luckily, we got this bike from Rock Harley-Davidson, and they've already gutted this exhaust. So it sounds exactly the way a Harley-Davidson is supposed to.
Naturally, with the new motor comes a new set of gadgets, and the Sportster S comes with all the usual add-ons, including riding modes and Bluetooth connectivity. Some may argue that the technology ruins the spirit of the ride, but in this case, not so much.
I like this dash. It's got this little round TFT dash, and it's not like this massive in-your-face cinematic experience, but this kind of just little gentle reminder, like a wink, to remind you that underneath all this sort of old-school Harley-Davidson image, there's this hint of the modern electronics and all the modern bits and pieces going on underneath. I like that. Just a hint, just a wink.
The frame is similar to that of modern-day Ducatis, in that there isn't much of one. Mostly it consists of the engine, with a small steel trellis bit at the top to hold the front end on, a steel trellis swing arm to hold the rear on, and a subframe to hold the fleshy bit on top. It's obviously made an impact. Where the other Harleys famously tip the scale at more than 300 kilograms, the Sportster S comes in at a breezy 228 kilograms.
The seating's sort of weird. I've ridden Harleys where honestly I couldn't ride for more than about 10 minutes and then had to stop and stretch a little bit. It is not exactly comfortable. Your feet are sort of very forward, your foot pegs are very forward, and the handlebar's kind of forward, so you're kind of crouched a little bit like this. Normally I'd complain, but on a bike like this, I kind of like it. It kind of gives me this sort of almost like aggressive feel, where it's not like I need to stop every 10 minutes, but at the same time, I'm still feeling like, yes, must attack. It's kind of a very nice sort of mix between the two. Also, I'm acutely aware of every single tiny little bump on this road.
There's new suspension from Showa, but not very much of it. The single rear shock delivers just 51 millimeters of travel.
That's about that much. And I've been told that that much isn't enough. Well, I've been told it a few times that that much isn't enough, but you know.
And that's not the only issue.
Now it's got that big front tyre that a lot of journalists have complained that it upsets the handling, and it does. I mean, the bike feels a bit heavy, a little bit wayward in the middle of the corner. Also, it's got a single front disc, top of the range Brembo brake, but one of them on a bike that weighs more than other motorcycles that have two. So yeah, if you're gonna be doing late braking, you might be in a spot of trouble, but it's not like it doesn't stop. At the same time, none of that really matters. I mean, Marc Marquez isn't getting on one of these and want to go break lap records and scrape his elders. That's not the point. It's not the point. The front tire, the front disc, it makes it look cool. It makes it look rock and roll. It makes you walk into your garage and love what you see and feel excited about riding it. And yeah, it detracts slightly from the actual ride, but I don't care. It's not the point. It's not why you're riding a Harley. This is a Harley-Davidson. Not only this is a modern Harley-Davidson, it is everything we've wanted from Harley for a very long time, and they've packaged it all up, they've delivered it. Thank you, Harley. Also, a quick thank you, Rock Harley-Davidson. They lent us this bike. You guys are rock and roll. Rock Harley.
I have to say that the new Sportster looks fantastic. Chunky, nicely proportioned. Harley's done a good job of replacing a model that we were all beginning to think would be continuing on until the end of time itself. For once though, we have our bureaucratic overlords to thank for something useful. Their stringent emissions regulations have finally brought an end to the air-cooled Sportster. I for one am extremely grateful for that, because the previous version was, quite frankly, absolute garbage. Terrible engine, awful handling, non-existent brakes and pillion accommodation that would ensure you remain single for the rest of your life. This new version is quite obviously in a different league, but unfortunately that league is now also significantly more expensive. The Sportster, especially the smaller 883 version, was always the most affordable way into the Harley family, so it had that going for it. It was possible to get on the first rung of Harley's aspirational ladder for the sort of money that the traditional blue-collar worker might actually be able to raise. I'm not so sure that's still the case, because 290,000 rand is a significant chunk of change for even the most comfortable of middle-class pen pushers. In fact, I think that the Softail Standard is probably now the cheapest of the Harley range. This is for me the most disappointing aspect of the new Sportster. It signifies the end of the brand's working class roots. The reputation and history of Harley-Davidson is based on the rugged, honest, hard-working goodness cliches of American labour, of returning servicemen looking for affordable wheels after the Second World War, and some cool, slightly dangerous edginess to that otherwise wholesome image came from the 1%er rebels unwilling to fit in with what society expected of them. Now you need to be a dutiful part of society's machine, a lawyer or a doctor or CEO to have any hope of joining an exclusive club that was once home to the average working Joe. And there's the customizing angle. Again, a huge part of the cruiser scene in the US and around the world these days. The Sportster was easy to work on, and modifications could be made to improve and personalise the bike without, again, breaking the bank. That isn't going to be a thing with this new model, with its engine providing much of the structure of the chassis and its liquid-cooled engine more easily improved with the aid of a laptop than anything mechanical. Still, if you are flush with cash and you do want to be part of the Harley-Davidson scene, then the Sportster S is now undeniably a far, far superior bike that can at least better live up to the sport part of the Sportster name. Right, a quick break to pay the bills.